certain structure.
I think you guys all have a couple examples of.
Ready? Can we not turn the lights on?
You're watching video.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, it's fine, it's fine. So the capstone is important. So you cannot turn in a one-pager and say, well, here's my capstone. You know? And I had a tremendous amount of variation of what you're sending me. I have reports that I would send to the National Science Foundation and said, my God, this is absolutely great. And I've got reports that I have no clue of what you did because it says, I am doing a report. It was good, thank you. And the expectation is that you're going to get a grade. We cannot do that unless you meet the requirements. You are getting a Master's of Science in Industrial and Systems Engineering from the University of Tennessee. Therefore, you have to meet those requirements. The requirements are that your report is going to have 5 sections or 5 chapters. Chapter 1 is your problem. You present your problem. Okay? You say, for example, background of the problem. And in the background, you provide why was this project important? Why was the problem that you're working on important? Okay. You would come back and say problem statement. Okay? This problem statement is, hey, of all of the problems that we see in this area, I'm only going to focus in on a small area. This is my problem statement. You come back and give you your general approach. And this general approach is not detailed, but it's a general approach that tells you, hey, I am going to do this first, I'm going to do this second, I'm going to do this third, I'm going to do this fourth, and watch, I am doing it for a reason. And in this, what you're going to do is, where you're going to project is, of all of the courses and materials you learn, which ones are you using? Okay. You can possibly write one little paragraph or one little section called anticipated results. And that's it. That's chapter 1. Is that okay? And I would assume that you would have all of these by now. That you would know why you're working on it, or you know what the problem statement is, that you know a general approach that you're taking, and then you would have anticipated results. Okay. Chapter 2, has everybody had that right time to write this down? Are we okay? Chapter 2 is the ability for me to understand that when you solve this problem, did you do it in isolation, or did you look at the literature search to see what other people had done? So this chapter 2 is your literature search. Now, you have two options. Let's just assume that I am looking at a maintenance program, okay, of a particular type. What you want to do is go into the literature search and say, what papers did you read? And you don't have to present all of the papers, but what you have to present is relevant papers that are telling you what other people have done. So you use keywords, maintenance, I don't know what else, reduction of cost in maintenance, and so you run those things, you bring out the literature search, you read it, and what in the literature search you do is the following, is you can do it chronologically. Of the 40 papers I read, I thought only 15 of those were important. And you could say author, year, okay, contribution. So somehow I would make up a table where I would start putting this, and then what you would do is, this would be the table where you would go in and each of the papers that you thought were important, you would write what the contribution was. The second thing that you guys can do, because you're at Y12 and ORNL, is also look at what were other work that was done at Y12 and ORNL regarding this. So I could have two tables. I could have say, hey, I've got these papers, well, look at this, and look, I have at Y12 we already have a history. We have a history at Y12 or ORNL history. Okay? That's what we do. What you are trying to prove, is look at my approach. It is a little bit different than anybody else. And for that, you should be proud, because you just didn't copy somebody else's work. You modified and uniquely changed something. You now own that. That is yours. And if it is good enough, I can promise you this, you can actually publish it and become known for whatever it is that you're doing. I know that from what I have seen in some courses, that if ORNL or Y12 was able to allow you to publish, we have at least 10 papers here that you can publish in your own name. How many of you have published papers before? 1, 2, 3. We could get you to publish papers if that's what you want. Are we okay? So what I would do if I were you, I would first present the history of what has been done at ORNL or Y12, and then what I would do is say, now based on that, I have done a literature search, and let me tell you what I found, and then the last paragraph or two would be what I am doing as presented in chapter 1 is very different or slightly different than what is presented in the literature search, which means I have innovative thought. Are we okay so far? Okay. Chapter 3.
I say that there are constraints in the system, like when you narrow 3 and down to 2.
Is your methodology. Chapter 3 is your methodology. The methodology, you know, what in chapter 1 you presented the overall approach. Remember all your overall approach? Here you detail it out. You detail it out. You detail it out. Okay, you just say, and don't put it in the case study. Don't work it out. Simply say, mathematically or however you want to do it, I'm going to first do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, but no application to your case study, right? No application at this moment. You're just simply showing how you, as individuals, now solve that problem. And it's in more detail. That's chapter 3. Chapter 4 is what? I would leave all of these, exactly what you did, and instead of the math model or whatever it is that you're doing, I would call it case studies. And you simply say, hey, remember I said I'm going to do this first? Here's what I did and here's my results. Here's what I did, here's my results. Here's what I did, here's my results. That would be chapter 4. Would be your case study. And chapter 5 is okay. So chapter 3 is what? I did a value stream map, then I did this, then I looked at risk, then I did a systems analysis, then I did this. So you lay it out. Then in chapter 4, you simply say, hey, guys, remember I said value stream map? Here's my value stream map. I said I'm going to do this, here that is. Here that is. So you're presenting the same methodology, and you're validating and proving it through a case study. Are we okay? And chapter 5 is the easiest. Chapter 5 is the easiest, in which you talk about your contributions. These are my contributions. And contributions can be in many, many different forms. It could be in the general framework of how you approached it, and I would assume in every case you would have that. 2, it could be in the technique that you used. 3, it could be that this technique has never been applied to that domain that you've been working on. So your contributions are significant, okay? You would then say, contributions, you say, if I was to continue this work, and this is not for you if you don't want it, you would say future work. So either for you, I want to improve upon what I want to do, here's a few things that I would do for future work. So somebody that's reading your stuff, let's assume, can come back and say, oh my God, what a great job they did, I'm going to follow up on it. And then you give yourself credit and say, I was amazing. All right, and that's it. Questions? Yes, sir.
On the chapter 2 literature search, if your situation at White 12 is so unique, is the White 12 history and past attempts enough?
What I would like you to do, if it's possible, just give me a general area that you're working with. Just tell me what that is.
Transportation.
Transportation.
And I know there's probably lots of stuff out there, but the constraints are unique to White 12.
Okay. So what I would do is I would do a literature search on transportation, and what I would do is say, with the following constraints, and see what pops out. And in some cases, you may be able to say, I did a literature search here, here, and here, and I only found one paper. Okay? But what you do want to show is the following, and here's what I want you to get across. You, in the way you are approaching stuff, is something that has not been done. So somewhere, whether it is in the domain or the technique or the approach, you have done something very unique that nobody else has done. Okay. So this is then, we come back, I think you asked, so the paper, and your presentation is what? On
The highlights of your paper.
the key would be, look, this is my problem statement. Okay, this is what I'm trying to do. Let me tell you why it's important. Here's my problem statement. Okay. My literature search tells me that other people have done it or other people have not done it, and this is why I'm doing it. Let me show you my methodology. I have steps. These are all my steps, okay? And you lay it out in detail. And then you say, now I applied it to my case study. Here's my case study. Here's my results. And then you say, what were your contributions? That would be your presentation. So nothing different than your capstone.
So do we actually put that in a PowerPoint, or do we just?
No, you put it in a PowerPoint. Because this is where you anticipate a lot of questions. Okay? You say, why did you do this? And therefore, if you have a literature search, it says, watch, I did this because of the following reasons. And that's what you want. Any other questions?
Where are we going to do this?
Carla, hold on. Carla, where are we going to do this?
Well, here's the deal, guys. Your final form, don't forget there's one more form, which is your pass-fail form. Past the deadline, which is not our department deadline, it's the grad school deadline. So we have no real wiggle room with that. It's November 3rd. So capstones are gonna have to be presented the week of October 23rd. And we have to decide on, it's probably gonna take a couple days.
Can I tell you this? Based on the work that I have seen you do on your courses, you don't have, if you are smart enough to know how to integrate all of that together, you don't have much to do. You have, in some cases, I have seen, and I can tell you, 1 or 2 students I know in my mind, they can actually write half a book. For example, we talk a lot about you every week, whether you know it or not. Okay? You know who talks about you back?
Mark.
Yeah. All right. So now, the question is, if you're worried about the amount of effort that you have to put in, it is a function of how much work you did on each of the courses. If you have done those substantially well, your effort is simply to do what? Integrate them into this format. Okay? That's all it is. So for you to be able to say that, only time I would be worried is, oh my God, I don't have this, and then you should be worried. But if you have all of your material and you have a good concept of what you were doing, it's simply putting and integrating it all together.
Do you want fresh material compared to our papers that have been turned in already?
Fresh, define fresh.
Like a different subject for like systems thinking, a different subject for reliability, instead of just taking what we already did and combining it, but you want a different subject.
Not necessarily, okay? This is for your benefit. I would assume that if you did it on this one and now you tried it on something different, it will only enhance your capability on your study. So if you want to do it with a fresh perspective on something else, and you could do it, and I think that would be very appreciative, simply because, not from my perspective, but from the fact that you now have applied it to two different cases. If you believe that you can enhance upon what you did in your classes and build and make it better and integrate it, that should be sufficient. Okay? Yes.
What about updating the data? Like, since we did this over like a year and a half time, and some of it was a year ago.
So what I would do is, one of the changes that you're saying, what is fresh, bring in the newer data and say, now that I have the newer data, and base it on the newer data. Analyze it from that perspective. Let me tell you a little bit about what I think you have done. We have been working with Mark and
Alex,
all right. We have come up based on, and I can show you exactly, I think I can share this with you, a completely different way of how systems, a model and a tool on how systems is going to be implemented at Whitewell. I believe that Mark has bought into it. I believe that the other two have bought into it. We are now developing the model, and guess who is that? He asked me. He said, how many of the students can we bring in to help you put it together? And if this succeeds, I can tell you it is going to be a completely different model on how to think. And to some extent, you know who's the most qualified to be able to do this at Whitewell? You. I don't know of anybody else that's more qualified than you guys. Because it is a QFD approach, which we talked about, right? I have 11 matrices, sets of matrices, that starts with customers and goes all the way down to control. Okay? If I showed you that before you start a project, I can actually create DNA structures of what is important in your system, a DNA structure. This DNA structure will indicate to you what is going to make that project a success from a systems perspective and not. And one of the projects that has been volunteered so that we can analyze it is your project. Have they talked to you about it?
they're gonna.
That sounds like.
So again, so it's not conceptual. We want some stuff that I can put it into this matrix, and I can show you this. It clicks, and it tells you every function that would be at risk. It tells you prerequisites to who should be doing what. It tells you how to control it, what performance metrics to have. So that's where we are. And it is not only that it is funded by Whitewell. My impression is that Mark is gone to PDRD. And we have talked to Tom, and the impression is that there is an agreement to fund this over 2 years. And I would not be surprised to see some of you working on that project from Whitewell's side. Are we okay? Now, what I will do is this. On the capstones, there is an individual that is going to be sitting back there that is one of my graduate students. They are very familiar with the structure and what needs to be done on a capstone. Okay? Hari, next time bring a thesis or a master's project.
They have one.
Who does? Okay, so you could sit there and say, hey, what should I do and how should I write it? I don't think you're going to have a lot of difficulty. It is simply where should it go, what should it happen, and all that kind of stuff. Are we okay with that? Yes. All right. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. I have a question. I have recently been moved to a different job, and just about almost everything about it is classified, even down to the materials and parts associated with what we're doing. So I'm going to try to get it downgraded to where I can present it to you, but if I am not successful, we only have 2 Q-cleared adjunct faculty, so.
Here's something. In order for you to get it cleared, I would say that clear it as quickly as you can, if you can. But we're going to have who? Reed?
And Reed has.
Has his Q.
Q clearance.
Dr. Cook is Q.
Dr. Cook has his Q clearance.
Is he gonna be on the committee, Dr. Cook?
We're trying to get him on the committee.
He's not yet, but Lee Martin.
Lee Martin doesn't have a Q clearance, does he? So what we have to do is I have to get 1 or 2 people that can sit and listen to you, who I trust, right? And they can come back and say, yep, I think they have met the requirements. And if they do that, I'll be fine.
And there's one, that's one I'm curious if we could do those presentations on site to you guys.
I don't mind doing that.
Because that would make it easier too, where we don't have to take it off site.
Here's what I'm afraid of is there is so much information here. I'm afraid that the classification folks are going to be afraid to tackle it because they might miss something. That's what I'm starting to fear.
So would it make a difference if we did it on site?
Well, that would definitely.
Well, we have the ability to meet you at Jack Case, I think. So if, Carla, can we do it at Jack Case? Does Reed have the ability to get into Jack Case? Yeah. Mark is there, so if he could get Mark there, then that'd be 3. So that'd be okay.
I'd be good with that.
All right.
We just need to know what I need to know is who's working, and I just need to know how many people are teaming up because we need to schedule enough time for all the presentations, so like Paul, Brianna, and Jay are working
Well,
together.
It is, I might. Can I tell you this, when somebody teams up, I have a higher expectation.
Are you suggesting I'm staying individual?
Stay individual.
That's what I got out of
See
that.
this side of the room?
All right, are we
What
okay?
about ORNL then? ORNL people?
Ornell should not have a lot of problems, I don't think.
No, we can't go
We can, we just have to get you a badge. It's really not bad.
You have a DOE
Well, I know that I can use one badge and get you to both places.
Yes.
You have a DOE badge.
I
Maybe we
can,
can go to SNS.
Well, I mean, we can, it's not a big deal.
As long as we coordinate it, we can do it at Jack Case and we can do it at SNS.
I'll go wherever
You can't go ORNL.
I'll go wherever you want me to go. I just have to show up. It doesn't make a difference where I park my car. As long as I know where to go. And the only thing I don't want to do is run from one here, run back here, run here, run back. How many of you, now let me ask you one last question. How many of you are interested in being able to publish your work?
if I can get it through the Office of Classifications.
No,
yes.
because what I want to do is, what we're looking for is this. When you leave this program, I want to see in 6 months, year, 2 years, where are you in your jobs? That's what we're going to track. So we're hoping that either your responsibilities have increased or you moved on to something different. 2 is, from an academic perspective, what we want to do is to make sure that those people that want to publish can publish, and for those, just somebody contact me and say, you know, we want to publish and I'll help you publish. All right. Was that it? So could you do me a favor? Could you talk to Mark?
Yeah, well, I see him every week. We have a tag-up meeting for the pilot program, so I'll see him Monday.
Because they told me that that one is, probably majority of the information is unclassified.
Will be.
So all I need
With the
is,
areas it's going will be classified, but the information about the equipment and the project is still classified.
so would you have the ability for us to talk to some people?
Oh, yeah.
Talk to Mark, because I talked to the other 2 gentlemen yesterday.
Howard and Dick.
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday, but I talked to Mark last week, and he was going to talk to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see you Monday, so I'll ask you about it.
All right. So here's the baton. After this semester, you now are going to be the instructor for all these classes.
There we go.